might not be so proper to make her more beloved in his eyes. They had the near perfect marriage. And if this question doesn't trouble you, let's follow the storyline a little bit. Sarah Imenu is on the other side of the tent. She's listening. A little while later, one of the Malachim say, this time next year, your wife is going to have a child. But Tislak Sarah, Bekirba Sarah laughs inside, saying, how could this be? But Doni Zake, my husband is too old. Hashem says to Avram, Lama Sachka Sarah, why did Sarah laugh, saying that she's too old? And that's not what Sarah said. Sarah said, how could this be when my husband is too old? And Hashem changed it to be, why did Sarah laugh, saying that she's too old? Says Rashi, Shina Kasav. Hashem changed. Hashem lied, if you excuse the expression. Why? B'nei Shalom, for peace. The halacha is, there's going to be a major battle, a major fight, a war, whatever it may be, you're allowed to lie for Shalom. I heard my Rebbe, the Shiva Zatzal, I went to Chatzchaim Yeshiva, asked the following question. When are you allowed to lie for Shalom bias? If there's going to be a major, who knows what, right? Imagine that Avram heard the words that Sarah said that he's too old. You think he would have fallen to, oh, Sarah called me an old man. Number one, he was a giant of a human being. Every year of his life was another accomplishment. He was at that stage in his life the richest man in existence, the most powerful man, and he had another 75 years to live. I don't think he would have gone to pieces. I don't think he would have broken up. I'm not even sure it would have made a scratch. Yet Hashem lied. Hashem changed the story. Why did Sarah say that she's too old? The question is, number one, why did the Malachim feel they had to make her more beloved in his eyes? And question number two is, why did Hashem have to change? Why did Hashem lie? This is difficult to understand. Okay, so let's begin with the following observation. And this one is a question. Ladies and gentlemen, what is the single biggest cause of divorce in the world today?
Lack of respect.
Lack of respect. Good. Anyone else?
Lack of communication.
Lack of communication. Good. Finances. How about right money? How about kids? Religion? In-laws? Right? I'd like to share with you they're all true, but none of them are the biggest cause of divorce. There's one significant cause of divorce today. And what's that? Fighting. Yeah, but Rabbi, come on, it's about kids and the in-laws and the money and stuff. That's what the fighting's about, right? Nope, it's never true. You know what the fighting is always about? It's never about the issue, it's always about the hurt feelings. It's never about the issue, it's always about the relationship. And would you like to know how I know this to be true? 70% of successful marriages have at least one irreconcilable difference. An irreconcilable difference means a difference that can't be reconciled. There is no middle point. For instance, let's say he has a successful business in Manhattan. She has severe allergies and she needs to live in San Diego. Chicago doesn't cut it for either one. Imagine he wants to bring the kids up in a Hasidic way. She wants a Litvish type of approach. You can't send the kids to yeshiva with long curly payas on one side. Right? There's no reconciliation. There's no mid-ground. 70% of successful marriages have at least one, if not more, irreconcilable differences. Yet somehow they're successfully married. Why? Because as long as the relationship is good, as long as there's love and respect, my way, your way, we find a way. But the minute the love in the marriage starts to wane, they are in very serious trouble. John Gottman is a marriage theorist, a marriage researcher. He can tell with 94% accuracy whether a couple will be divorced within 5 years or not. And he explains his system. He brings them into his lab, he puts them into 2 chairs, and he measures everything, their pulse, respiration, heart rate. He videotapes it, and he asks them to discuss 3 topics. One is he calls a neutral topic, and the other one is a mutual pleasing topic, and the other one is a flashpoint, something they typically argue about. And he explains he watches the videotape afterwards and he's looking for one thing. Contempt. Now, contempt is not hatred. It's not anger. It's just kind of rolling of the eyes like, there you go again. He says if he sees one sign of contempt without 5 positive signs opposite it, that couple is headed for deep trouble. But why? Because the glue of the marriage is the love. The relationship is the essence of the marriage. You see, ladies and gentlemen, Hollywood got it 100% right, but backwards. In the world of Hollywood, we fall in love, we get married. We fall out of love, we get unmarried. Love comes, love goes, it's a mystery, we don't get it. From a Torah perspective, when you choose the person, love has nothing to do with that criteria. You choose this person because I believe this is the person that Hashem has determined is the right one for me. That's how you choose. But if you don't work on a very powerful bond of love, if you don't keep that bond of love going on an ongoing basis, in a very short time, you're going to be distant, you're going to be far apart. And I believe that's exactly what Rashi is telling us. As near perfect as their marriage was, and the Malachim said, you gave us food, they want to give something back. They wanted to make her more beloved in his eyes. Why did Hashem change? And Avram Avinu would not have gone to peace. Oh, she called me an old man. But it would have made a scratch, maybe an infant, maybe not even noticeable scratch, but enough for Hashem to lie, because Shalom Bayis is Kaddish, is holy, and love is the essence, the glue of a successful marriage. Okay, so far we're good? Okay, I get the phone call. And it happens only too often, and the phone call sounds something like this. Rabbi Shafeir, yeah, thank you for taking the call. How can I help you? Well, it's my husband. What's up? Well, he's a good guy. He's responsible. He learns. He takes care of the kids. He earns a good living. I said, so far sounds pretty good. What's the problem? And what's the problem? The problem is I don't love him. I don't love him. Okay? How long you married? 10 years. How many kids? 5 kids. Okay, good. So ladies and gentlemen, what do you do when you get the phone call? The woman's married 10 years, 5 kids, and she doesn't love her husband. What do you do?
Send him to another animal.
So, I'll tell you what I do. What I do is I ask the question that I always ask at that point. I say, madam, tell me this. Last month, how many times did you and your husband go out? But go out doesn't mean to a wedding or bar mitzvah or to your in-laws. How many times did you and your husband go out to connect, to bond, to spend time together? The answer is, we didn't. Okay? The month before that, how many times did you go out? We didn't. The month before that, we didn't. The month before that. By about 8 or 9, I stop and I say, don't you understand? If you're not going to work on the bond, the connection, if you're not going to work on the love in the marriage, you're going to veer apart, you're going to be distant, you're going to be 2 ships in the night. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're married, I'd like to share with you that radical and incredible approach that I sometimes often say, and I get into trouble for this. If you're single, you can hear what I'm saying. If you're married, you will not. Here we go. If you're married, you have to be going out at least once a week. You go out as a couple to connect, to bond, to spend time together. You go out, you leave the kids behind, you leave the issues and trouble, and you go out to spend time together, to connect, to rebond, to be together as a couple. You see, a couple is supposed to be having an ongoing love affair. It's not just during the courtship stage. It has to be ongoing year after year, year after year, and requires constant vigilance, constant attention. Now, when I say these radical lines, like you should be going out once a week, the pushback I get is incredible. Once a week, Rabbi, are you crazy? You know how expensive it is? And you know who has the time for it? My husband just started a new job. Who could ever do that? Right? So I have an answer. It is true. It is very expensive to go out once a week. Would you like to know how much it costs the alimony and the divorce court? It's very, very time-consuming. How about shuffling the kids between 2 homes and figuring out who gets in which weekend? The best investment you can make in your health, your happiness, and certainly in your shalom bayis, is to go out, because you have to reconnect. But you see, gentlemen, it's not just about the going out once a week. It's the love notes, it's the gifts, it's all the things that a couple in love need to be constantly doing. Not when you're going out, not just when you're dating, but after you're married, year 1, year 2, year 10, year 36. And that means ongoing constantly. Because the glue of the marriage is love, and if you're not constantly working on the love, in a very short time you're going to be distant, you're going to be apart. And how many singles do we have in this room? How many singles? Okay, how many married? How many who are not sure? Wow. We had like 5 singles, 10 married, and like we got a lot more people. Okay, whatever. I guess it's a binary. Yeah, I guess you're fluid. Okay, fine. I'm not going there. Well, okay, fine. Anyway, let's assume you're married. If you're not married, listen to this anyway. But again, gentlemen, oh, here we go. Am I popular? Am I liked? Good. Now I become unpopular. Gentlemen, it is your responsibility to romance your wife. It is your responsibility to plan the date. It is your responsibility to buy the gifts and the notes. And the minute a guy says to me, well, I told her to pick the restaurant and let me know, I'll be there. I said, you blew it. You blew it. Because the message you want to give your spouse is, I love you, I cherish you. By the way, ladies, anyone who's married will vouch for this. It is my firm belief that most women, when they get married, are insecure about their husband's love. The beginning of the marriage, I would say the first 30 or 35 years, they're insecure about their husband. All right, the girl with the daisy, he loves me not. Most women are incredibly insecure, and most guys do a very good job of feeding that insecurity. They don't take her out, they don't pay attention, they don't buy the gifts, the love notes, the cards, all this stuff. So gentlemen, do yourself, one second. Anybody here would like to be happy? Go like this. You'd like to be happy? A happy wife is a happy life. If you romance your spouse, if you let her know one message, you cherish her, you love her, life will be very, very sweet. The minute you stop giving her that message, what's going to happen is she's going to become very, very, difficult. Oh, can I mention this? Avi, you here? Where's Avi? Yeah, okay, am I allowed to mention this? Okay, a long time ago I was going to write 2 books. One for women and one for men, right? The women, it was to explain to them their husbands, and one for men was to explain to them their wives. So the women liked the title that I had for their book. I was going to write a book for women, how to understand their husbands. The book was going to be called How to Train Your Lizard. You know, guys are reptiles, cold-blooded, how to train you. And the ladies found it very funny, right? But they didn't find it so funny once I explained to them the book for the men. The book for the men was called How to Tame Your Dragon. Like she's okay, she's nice, as long as you, but the minute she stops feeling that you love her, the flames are going to come out. So anyway, I didn't write the books because I knew I'd be banned or whatever, but I did start a Monday night group, a Zoom group, called How to Tame Your Dragon. It's a men's group. Ladies, you're not invited, believe me. And I stress over and over one thing. The single best investment you could make in your being happy, and I say, gentlemen, this one's on your side of the mechitza, in your being happy is if you shower your wife with attention, if you let her know that she's cherished, if you let her know that she's loved, she's going to be happy, and guess what? You're going to be happy. And if you don't give her that message again and again, but I told her 10 years ago, I told her under the chuppah, and nothing changed, right? Try that one, see how well it works out. Really dumb mistake number 1 is not working on the connection, not working on the bond, not going out as a couple, not doing all the things that a couple in love have to be doing. And gentlemen, to be honest with you, this one's more on your side of the mechitza. It's your responsibility to romance your spouse. Okay, let's move on to really dumb mistake number 2. I want to share with you 2 scenes. I'm going to ask you the difference between the 2 scenes. Here's scene 1. A young woman's over here, a young man is over here. They're walking down the street, he trips. And she says, "Ay, are you okay? Are you all right?" That's scene 1. Scene 2, same young woman, same young man, walking down the street. The guy trips. Kolats, what's wrong with you? Can't even walk down the street? What's wrong with you? What's the difference between scene 1 and scene 2?
She doesn't love him, she loves him.
Scene 1 is their chassan and kala. Scene 2 is they're married 3 years. And this is the second of the 10 really dumb mistakes that very smart couples make. You have to work on the bond, the connection, the love. Love is the glue of marriage, but there also has to be respect. Because you see, if I love you, but I don't treat you with respect, it's going to be very difficult for you to be married to me, and a lot more difficult for you to love me. And my friends, I have to share with you, this is one of the most incredible things I've seen on a regular basis. Couples who seem to like each other, but they say such expressions, such words to each other, like, my hair wants to say, "My shit, that's the dumbest, stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life." Hashira, that's crazy, ridiculous. How can you say something so dumb? Like, you guys like each other? Like, how? Okay. Let's go back to John Gottman. Another little study he conducts when he looks at the couples, after he brings them in and has them talk to each other, he asks the man to leave and brings in a stranger. He has the wife talk to a strange man, he records that conversation, and then he asks the woman to leave, brings in a stranger. Basically, he has the couple speak to themselves and then speak to other strangers. And here's what he finds. Whether the couple are newly married or married for 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years, invariably we are more polite to utter strangers than we are to our own spouse. But worse than that, we're far more agreeable to an utter stranger than we are to our own spouse. But even worse, if we do disagree, we are far more polite and far more accepting of a stranger's viewpoint different than ours than we are of our own spouse. And this is the second of the 10 really dumb mistakes that very smart couples make, not working on the respect in the marriage. You have to love your spouse, you have to work and foster that bond, that connection, but there also has to be a very healthy sense of respect. And ladies and gentlemen, I am a big fan a big fan of breaking this device. I think this device causes us so much trouble that it's incredible. Even though that there's a TorahAnytime.com app, and even though there's a Shmooze app, I believe we'd be a lot better off without this device. However, there is one app on this device that I think is well worth using, and that's the tape recorder. Put that tape recorder on one time when you're having a conversation with your spouse. Maybe it's during dinner, maybe just you're sitting on the couch, and play it back afterwards and listen to the way you speak to each other. And if you find that you're far more polite to strangers than you are to your own spouse, if you find that you're much more accepting of others' opinions than you are to your own spouse, it's time to work on the respect in a marriage. Really dumb mistake number one is not working on the love, the connection, the bond. Really dumb mistake number two is not working on the respect in the marriage. But okay, let's move on. Really dumb mistake number three. Elizabeth Holton earned a PhD in psychology from Stanford University with a very interesting experiment. She split up volunteers into two groups. She made a list of well-known songs, Happy Birthday, Star Spangled Banner, and she asked one of the volunteers to be a tapper, to tap out the song, and the listener to guess the song. So basically she did this with hundreds and hundreds of volunteers. And one person's job was to tap out the beat of the song, and the listener's job was to guess the song. Now, the listeners guessed it correctly 2.5% of the time, almost never. And if you think about it, it should be rather obvious. Is that Happy Birthday or Star Spangled Banner? I don't really know. It's pretty hard to tell from a beat what the song is. But that wasn't the interesting part. She asked the tappers to take a guess. What are the odds that the listener is going to guess it right? Person after person said at least 50%. For sure she's going to get it. For sure he's going to get it. And you could see the tape recorder, well, the videotape, when the tapper's tapping out the song and the listener doesn't get it, the tapper's like, how could you not get it? But you know what she earned a PhD for? The reason behind it. You see, when you tap out a song, you can't help but play it in your mind. And when you hear it in your mind, it's so obvious. How could you not tell that's the Star Spangled Banner? And this is the third of the 10 really dumb mistakes that really smart couples make. Assuming that that which is in my mind is in your mind. Assuming that the way I feel about things is the way you feel about things. Assuming that my experience defines reality. And I'd like to share with you two examples of this. One is a very small example, but the other one is a lot larger. Here's a small example. As I mentioned, Baruch Hashem, we're married now, coming up on 36 years, and I find the following phenomena incredible. To this day, Shabbos, I typically get up very early. The house is quiet. I learn. And a little bit later in the day, I bring my wife a cup of coffee in bed. She likes to have a cup of coffee in Shabbos in bed. And to this day, as I'm preparing the cup of coffee, I open the fridge and I have to stop. Because I'm about to reach for the creamer, and I have to stop. Now, everyone knows that coffee tastes much better with full-fat milk, at least, or creamer for sure. But here's the problem. The problem is my wife prefers her coffee with skim milk. And to this day, I have to stop. Oh, but I want to give her the good. I want it to taste good. I want to give her a good cup of coffee with full-fat milk, or creamer for sure, half and half. But the problem is that's not the way my wife likes her coffee. Ladies and gentlemen, do you hear what I'm saying to you? What I'm saying to you is the way I experience things is the way I experience things. But recognizing that my spouse has a different experience. My spouse has a different way of thinking, a different temperament, a different approach, and has a totally different viewpoint on things is one of the key and essential ingredients to being successfully married. Okay, now here's the bigger example of that. A young man is married 6 months, and he's coming home from work, and as he's about to put his key into the apartment door, he says to himself, Baruch Hashem, I married such a grounded girl, not one of these flighty dames, not one of these, Baruch Hashem. He puts his key in the door, opens the door, walks in, and sees his wife up on the chair. What is it? What is it? There! What? There! What? It's a cockroach. A what? A cockroach! Do something! You can come down now. Okay, listen, he doesn't say anything, but hey, whatever. 2 weeks later, he's at work, and he's very focused at work. He shuts his phone off. A coworker brings the phone over and says, your wife's on the phone, something sounds serious. Better. He takes it. What is it? Could you come home, please? Why? What's the matter? Please come home. Why? What's the matter? There are 2 of them. Come home now. What? There are 2 of them. Come home now, please. I don't believe it. She wants me to leave work, stop what I'm doing, to kill 2 stupid bugs. Furious, he gets into his car, drives home. He's about to put the key in the door. He opens the door, and there she is. Where are they? Over there. There are 2 of them over there. I hope you're satisfied. Turns around, heads right back to his car, drives back to work. Ladies and gentlemen, who was right? Who was right? Was she right? After all, she was terrified, she was scared. Calls her husband home to save her. Was he right? After all, 2 stupid bugs? He called me to stop working for 2 bugs? Who was right? Who was right is an excellent question to ask in a court of law, maybe a divorce court. But who was right is a terrible question to ask in a marriage. A far more helpful question to ask would be, what was going on in each of their minds and their psyches? So let me let you in on a little part of reality. I have, Baruch Hashem, 4 daughters and 2 sons. I don't know why it is, but my daughters are afraid of bugs, the boys are not. When the girls were little, they used to call the baby brother in to take care of the bug, just to make sure he didn't eat the bug. But I don't know why it is, the girls are afraid of bugs, the boys aren't. But here's the point. She's up on the chair and she is terrified. If you would like to understand what she was experiencing at that moment, let's change the scene a little bit. Let's say it was him home alone and not her. And let's imagine instead of 2 cockroaches, it was 2 German shepherds. Would he be up on the chair? He'd be out the fire escape down the block, because German shepherds are scary and bugs aren't. But that's true in his experience. The way he experienced things, bugs are not scary, dogs are. But guess what? If you remain married to your experience and can't climb into the experience of your spouse, you're going to have a difficult time being happily married. Because I guarantee your spouse is going to look at things differently, feel about things differently, and have a different perspective than you do. And the very first ingredient in a very successful marriage is your ability to climb into your spouse's reality. Dumb mistake number 1 is not working on the love, and dumb mistake number 2 is not working on the respect. Really dumb mistake number 3 is assuming that my reality defines, my experience defines reality. My experience is the way I experience it, but it doesn't define reality, and learning that my spouse thinks differently, feels, why can't she be normal like me? Why can't she just think like me? Why can't she? Because she's not you. Okay, let's move on. Okay, really dumb mistake number 4. Ladies, this one's on your side of the court over here. Okay. 4 against. Okay, 1 second. Here we go. We said love is the key glue to marriage. What is the single most important ingredient in a successful relationship? Right? Understanding, communication, trust. What is the single most important ingredient in a successful relationship? Communication. Most women I've asked will say communication. Woman after woman say communication. I've seen it time after time. I've never yet heard a guy say that. Not once. Not once.
Unconditionally being there for them.
Okay, Ted Houston is a psychologist in the University of, somewhere down in Texas, interesting enough. Anyway, he studied 264 couples in depth, and one of the questions he asked them is this question. What is the most important ingredient in a successful relationship? And almost all the women said communication. And almost none of the men said communication. Interesting enough, Lillian Rubin, who is also a psychotherapist in marriage counseling, once reports she's dealing with a couple, and she asked the wife to step outside for a few minutes to speak to the husband. And she asked the husband, describe to me the best part of your relationship. He says, well, we could just be sitting on the couch, holding hands, maybe listening to music, but we don't have this incessant need to talk, to yap. We're just spending time together. Okay? She asked the gentleman to leave, asked the wife to come back in, and asked the wife to describe the relationship. Well, we could be sitting on the couch listening to music, and he sits there like a log. He doesn't say a word. I want to hit him on the head with a bat. Ladies and gentlemen, the single biggest complaint that women come to marriage therapists with is we never talk. The single biggest complaint that men come to the marriage therapist with is all we do is talk, talk, talk. Now somebody got it wrong. Either we never talk or we're always talking, but what's going on here? Anyone curious to know the answer to this question? Okay, you can answer this question very, very simply. All you have to do is go to a Shabbos morning Kiddush and listen to the conversations on the women's side of the Kiddush and listen to the men's side of the Kiddush. And this is sort of what it sounds like. And you go to the women's side and it sounds something like this. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Oh. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Ooh. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Oh. Great talking to you. Okay, that's the woman's side. And now let's go over to the man's side. Conversation sounds something like this. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Great talking to you. Okay. You ever notice women make all those oohs and ahs and ah, ooh, you need a lexicon. What are they? I don't even know what they're saying. But gentlemen, why do women make all of those oohs and ahs and oh, wow, oh? Why do they do that? Why? Anybody curious? To share the pain. To share the pain. No. Wrong answer. You married? No. Deborah Tannen is a sociologist. She wrote a number of books describing men and women in conversation. And she describes that men and women talk about different subjects with different intentions, with total different ideas in mind. And very often the reason why a woman speaks is to communicate, to bond, to connect. Most of the time, the reason why guys talk is to share ideas. And why does she make all of those oohs and ahs? Because she's connecting to the woman next to her. Ooh, ah. Okay, so, gentlemen, here we go. Are you ready? Let's go back to that T question. Would you like to be happy? He's not looking, he's typing into his phone. Yeah? You want to be happy or no? Say no. If you don't, say no. Say no. So, you want to be happy? Good, okay. What's the rule? A happy wife is a happy life. You have to learn to listen to your wife. You have to learn to share with your wife. But gentlemen, I don't know if you're going to do so well at the oohs and ahs, but you got to learn that communication means something very, very different to your wife than likely it does to you. Women bond, they connect. That's how they create that sense of unity. That's how they create the sense of connection. And you have to learn to share with your wife. You have to learn to listen to your wife. And gentlemen, don't make that dumb mistake that I made. This is mistake number 4 is not understanding communication is different for men and women. I was married for about 10 years, and I realized something very interesting. I was a high school Rebbe. A big part of the job of Rebbe is to teach guys how to learn, but probably the bigger part of his job is to teach the guys about life. And guys would come to me with questions all the time. We'd sit down, we'd talk, and I thought I was doing a pretty good job. 20 years later, guys would come to me, Rabbi Shafeir, that advice you gave me back in high school, it's great, I still use it today. Okay, whenever a guy would come to ask me for my advice, generally speaking, I would listen, we'd discuss it, and he left pretty happy. And then I'd go home, and my wife would ask me for advice, and she was never happy. It was like my IQ dropped 80 points when I crossed the threshold. I didn't get it. Okay, you know what I discovered after 10 years of marriage? My wife was not asking for my advice. She wanted to share. She wanted to communicate. So gentlemen, here's the big rule. Don't change it, don't fix it, don't improve it, don't tell her what you could have done. Listen, just listen, bond, empathy. We could discuss that in the Monday night group, what empathy is about, how to do it. But gentlemen, this is mistake number 4. Not understanding that communication means something different to your spouse than it does to you. Mistake number 1 is not working on the love in marriage. Really dumb mistake number 2 is not working on the respect. Really dumb mistake number 3 is what? Assuming that my experience defines reality, not understanding that my spouse views things differently. Really dumb mistake number 4 is not understanding that communication means something different to your wife than it does to you. Okay, so ladies, we got this straight? It's all the guy's fault, right? Got that? Everybody agree? Right? Everyone in agreement? Yep, all the guy's fault. So, I would like to agree with that, but I have found that there are things that women do that make it difficult for their husbands to like them, let alone love them. Let me share with you one of the top 10 of those. Here we go.